Howdy guys, say, tech demos. Nintendo said hold my f***ing beer.
I love it when it does that.
Dear God, its box art is orange.
Damn it, I knew I did something wrong. Wii Sports Resort? There's still some of the tape left. I wonder what's on the rest of it. By which I mean ported to HD consoles. No. HD Remaster. HD Remaster. Howdy guys, weird dream, huh? HD Remaster. Okay, that was some heavy information. But it's okay, we're still a ways away from that. But to prolong me from coming to terms with this horrible truth, I've decided to take on a new hobby. Exercise. And luckily that brings us to the next chapter of our story. Let's see. Wii Sports Resort, we play. Aha! Wii Fit. The game that would make Nintendo double down on their marketing strategy. Nursing homes and women's locker rooms. Wii Sports was a massive success for Nintendo. I know I've already said that, but it's really necessary to highlight that. But man, oh man, were their sequels ever more... well, I guess weren't as successful, but they certainly established the Wii series as we know it today. I mean, I guess they didn't really do that either. That achievement would actually belong to Wii Fit. It was Nintendo's third entry in the, quote, Wii series, and if they were ironically going hardcore on the whole casual games market, then this next game would crank that up to 10,000. But before we get to that, we're gonna have to do a bit of time jumping here, all the way back to 2006. Again. In an Iwata Asks interview about the Wii, it stated that Shigeru Miyamoto had written down the idea of a Wii health pack alongside various other concepts for Wii games on a piece of notebook paper. He had based the idea around a habitual activity of his, that being monitoring his weight and recording it on graph paper, so the early prototypes were pretty much just checking your weight. Somewhere along the line, the use of a special wireless scale, later being named the Wii Balance Board, was added. They also decided to market to the whole people who like games with content market by adding various balance-themed mini-games. They would continue to refine the game until it was officially announced at E3 2007. Just send out an email and save everyone the embarrassment. To be fair, this presentation wasn't particularly bad per se, but there sure is an abundance of casual games here. They mostly just gloated about how well the Wii was doing, which, yeah, I say was pretty valid. Wii Fit's reveal would be their final announcement, where they would show a small demonstration of the game. Reggie says a funny meme, and they end things off by failing at the soccer minigame. Overall, it's easy to see the not-so-subtle rise in Nintendo's casual library, and things would only get better from there. Wii Fit would later be showcased at various events for the rest of the year before the game was released in Japan on December 1st, 2007, Europe on April 25th, 2008, Australia on May 8th, and finally North America on May 21st. At this point, you really must be shocked when I say it became the 6th best-selling Wii game at over 22 million units sold. No way! The game came bundled with its required accessory, the Wii Balance Board. This plastic slab is sort of a mix of a scale and motion sensor. Underneath the four corners of the board are load sensors that detect your weight and current position depending on what part of the board you're currently putting pressure on. This essentially let you control most games it supported by moving your body around. It was definitely made for Wii Fit, but it was also supported in various other games. I just found it hilarious how many third-party devs cram balance board support in games that really didn't need it. The best examples I can think of are Rayman Raving Rabbids and Tetris Party. But of course, something that would set Wii Fit apart from even the more contemporary Wii series games is in its marketing. I can only assume that Nintendo saw the success of Wii Sports and asked, can we do this again? Well, they certainly did just that! Like, for Christ's sake, there's a white lady on the box art. You can't accidentally make that up. That could be me!
Imagine it. Maybe you're somewhat of a health nut. Maybe not. Who f***ing cares? The important thing is that you see this cool new piece of tech that's compatible with the other piece of tech that you haven't touched since November, and so you purchase it. Congratulations, you've fallen for their trap. Now it sits, alone, underneath your bed, seemingly forever.
That is until I decide to play it again for retrospective purposes. Alright, I'm about as ready as Sasha from Pilates, so buck up. This could get ugly. Okay, you too, I guess.
Mr. Anthropomorphic Balance Board here, which already meets my expectations, introduces you into the world of Wii Fit and subsequently spouts some fitness knowledge at you. Specifically, that one major area the game will focus on is your posture. Basically, he says poor posture can mess up weight distribution, which can lead to various health risks. And to its credit, that is a real health concern that it can actually help with, considering its main peripheral is based on detecting your position and how much pressure you're putting on it. Thus, we begin our first body test. It's basically an amalgamation of all the health stuff I was talking about earlier. It first measures your center of balance to determine how good your posture is. It then measures your weight, and by combining that with your height, it determines your final BMI. Oh yeah. BMI is another part of Wii Fit's health appeal. It's a pretty old standard that was used to determine how fit you were. It requires you to take height and weight, then throw some complicated math shit in there, and BAM! However, the system has been disproven by scientists to hell and back and has been shown to be quite an accurate method for years now. For example, if you were more muscular but maybe were just a tad bit shorter, you would still be classified as overweight. The game does say you shouldn't look into it too much, but it's kinda hard to do that when the fucking fatty boom-balatti music's playing in the background. So we're already about 5 minutes into this fitness experience, and some little girl out there has already had body image issues. That's a record. I guess we might as well set some unrealistic goals to help me lose this weight. Yeah, seems reasonable. Luckily, we're approaching the, quote, fun part of the body test. You're subjected to kinda cool mini-games based around the balance board, like the balance test, which makes you balance your weight to make these lines line up with these blue boxes, or moving a red dot into other blue boxes. Cool shit. To me, it feels like this is closer to what the game was originally gonna be like, as said back in the Iwata Asks interview. Well, thank God they changed that, because man, on their own, they're so dull. Luckily, it's over before you know it, and your points are tallied together to give us your Wii Fit age. Now, if that sounds familiar, that's probably because this is almost exactly like the Wii Fitness mode all the way back in the original Wii Sports. You know, the really shallow mode that just compiled your scores from the Wii Sports training mode games into some random number. Well, it's back, and well, I think it fits. It has actual fitness data to go off of, and it's supposed to be accurate to your age, which is pretty cool. If you wanted to, you could also install the Wii Fit channel, which is just a body test but without you putting the game in the system, because yeah, that's the feature everyone wanted to more easily access. But of course, they couldn't just make a compilation of boring tests the entire game. This is the Wii Series, for crying out loud. Well, what would be more Wii Series than a series of motion control based mini games? But goddammit, no, we can't get to that until we meet Mr. Anthropomorphic Balance Board's friends. There's the piggy bank and mannequins possessed by the souls of the damned. But hey, at least we finally now have access to the meat of Wii Fit. The minigames are split up into a few sections. There's aerobics, the games that are more or less just various exercises, balance games, games that are based around you balancing, and then there's the yoga and strength training, which I'm not getting into right now because I really don't want to. First off, we have hula hoop. You twist your hips around in the same motion that you would an actual hula hoop. This is a pretty good example of what the balance board is good at, checking your position and basing how balanced you are off of that. There's also super hula hoop, which is exactly the same thing. Next, we have the step games, basic and advanced step. You just march on the balance board in tune to a song with alternating foot patterns you have to match. This one isn't as responsive, especially when you have to move your feet to the side, because unless I press really hard, I can't tell whether or not I turn my foot. Also, don't make me clap, I already have secondhand embarrassment. A pretty notable game is the running games. For some godforsaken reason, it's one of the only mini games to not use the balance board. I know there has to be some reason for it, but why? You're telling me the board that can clearly detect footsteps is suddenly unable to do that just because you're running? I think what makes it worse is that you instead put the Wii remote in your pocket, and depending on how big your pockets are, it really varies how accurate it'll be. Now here's an interesting point. Like I mentioned last time, Wii Fit was the first appearance of Woohoo Island, or Wii Fit Island as it was known back then. It's pretty much just a more basic version, but it's still really nice and atmospheric to run through, with Miis and their pets cheering you on from the sidelines. I feel like a star! And I guess for those who are either bored or 5, there are hidden 8-bit Mario sprites all over the island. Guys, just put a few Metroid sprites here and there. It's not gonna kill ya. But my absolute favorite aerobics game is most certainly rhythm boxing. Well, bonus points for taking place in the Wii Sports training room, but come on, I'm a sucker for rhythm games. Of course I'd be into this. The song's great. I find it really satisfying to punch and dodge the punching bag, don't ask. And yes, this did hurt. This is an example of a game that has an advanced mode that gets pretty difficult. Again, the only problem I have is that it sometimes has has issues detecting where my feet are placed, but it's very minor. But certainly the best use of the Wii balance board comes in the balance games that are controlled purely by the balance board, and we certainly have a wider variety to choose from here. First off, we have soccer heading, a game I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with. You tilt your Mii's head from side to side in order to hit the soccer balls and avoid the contraband. I'm glad me and Reggie can relate on one thing. There's ski slalom, where you maneuver down a hill, and ski jump, where you jump off a hill by bending your knees. There's nothing really noteworthy about them, but they do control pretty nice. One of the more obvious ideas they had was table tilt, where you move your body to tilt this platform in order to roll your Mii's ball into this hole. Now, I can't tell if this reminds me of something from either Wii Play or cool math games, but I'm a fan nonetheless. In Tightrope Walk, you walk on a tightrope. It doesn't get any better than this. Balance Bubble is kinda interesting. Okay, so let me just give you a brief history lesson here. Back at E3 2006, there were these demos for the Wii Remote's IR sensor. One of these was called the Obstacle Course. Now, although it never came out as it appeared in the demo, it was partially revived in Wii Play as Pose Me. Now, all it really did was bring back the bubble mechanic, but using the pointer to control it. But in Balance Bubble, we can see that it looks a lot more like the demo, down to the art style. It's definitely not the same though, specifically the controls and the lack of a scrolling camera. It's still pretty cool to see it like this though, but seriously, this requires some heavy subtlety with your movement as it can get very tricky. Penguin Slide is exactly what you think it is, and a snowboarding game. I think it controls way better thanks to the fact that you actually have to physically turn the balance board to control it, adding a bit more to the immersion. The final balance game is Lotus Focus. Your balance is put to the test as you sit crisscross applesauce and try to stay still. Even for a guy as jittery as me, it was pretty easy. Pretty sure you can also cheese this game hard by just putting something heavy on it, but I digress. I guess there's also the secret mini game, the ultimate balance test. It's a slightly harder balance test. Yeah. Of course, I now have to talk about the yoga and strength training games. It's a bit of a stretch to call these games, rather they're exercises that use the Wii balance board. Miyamoto stated in an interview that this part of the game was partially inspired by fitness tapes he would watch, and yeah, this seems pretty accurate. Other than the interactive angle, it's almost exactly like a workout tape. You got your pretty fitness instructor telling you all the moves, and the oddly engaging music in the background. Yoga is a group of physical, mental, and spiritual practices or discipline which originated in ancient India and aimed to control and still the mind, recognizing a detached witness consciousness untouched by the mind and mundane suffering. Well, if you've ever wanted to see that on a Wii, well then by golly, have they got you covered. It is another good use of the balance board, even if it is a little jank sometimes. Strength training is more dedicated to toning your body and is way more physically taxing, especially if you do them all at once.
I know you took a break during this exercise.
No, I'm fine.
Overall, the minigames are really fun. Not all of them are perfect, but at the very least, they're a good use of the Wii balance board, which is something I was a bit skeptical about. The exercises, I'd say, are also a good use of the board and get me at least a little more active. There's also the more fitness management side of Wii Fit, aka charts. There's a chart for your BMI, weight, Wii Fit age, and it even keeps track of how many calories you've burned through both the mini games as well as letting you log non-in-game activity as well.
Now, like in most other Wii Series games, it does have a few problems in addition to the ones I just mentioned. For example, it's a f***ing liar.
Okay, I think I need to make this very clear. Wii Fit is a fun minigame collection that has a fitness theme with various exercise tools to help you keep good posture. However, Wii Fit is not a good workout. Notice how I mentioned the fact that the game always says its goal is to help maintain good posture, not something like be healthier or lose weight or something like that. No, it's just good posture. Well, according to a few studies, posture alone is not going to lead you to becoming healthier. Proper exercise and diet are needed. Others claim the minigames were pretty low intensity workout that did very little in terms of burning calories. But what I believe to be its biggest issue is one simple thing. A regular workout is usually a small series of exercises done in a row, but in Wii Fit, all of the exercises are split up between menus and loading screens, something that would pretty much ruin any chance of being an effective workout. It's not impossible to become healthier with Wii Fit, but it's much harder than it really should be. And it's not like they don't know that. All the characters in the game never specifically say anything about being healthier, and at some points they even say not to take the information given to you seriously. I think it's just ever so slightly deceptive because I highly doubt Mom's gonna really think that when she's looking at the box art. It's clearly marketed to be some kind of easy workout at home, which is really not true. But at the end of the day, my opinion still stands. Overall, Wii Fit is still a really fun game. On one hand, you have various tools and simple exercises, so Nintendo can say it's beneficial in some way, but on the other hand, you have a collection of really good minigames that perfectly utilize an otherwise gimmicky controller. And at the end of the day, I think that's all that really matters.
Overall, yeah, didn't have too many complaints with this one. It's a nice minigame compilation with a few health-conscious modes here and there, but of course, Nintendo couldn't sleep on such a moment, that much is obvious. But what would they do for a sequel? Well, of course they had to...
So earlier I was talking about how, like its counterparts, Wii Fit sold very well. Not as much as the others, but still very much enough to warrant a sequel. But what would they do? Well, let's look at Wii Sports Resort as an example, introducing 10 new minigames with improved controls, all on a beautiful and iconic setting. However, for Wii Fit, they didn't exactly do that. They instead made Wii Fit Plus, a refined and enhanced version of the original. But before I delve any further into that, let's discuss its development. Shortly after Wii Fit's release, Miyamoto wanted to make a sequel on the grounds that they could add new features like brain training games a la Brain Age, as well as improve the whole being a terrible exercise critique. So they started work on this quote new version of the game, which was then revealed at Nintendo's E3 2009. No!
Wii Fit has been the best-selling video game in America and around the world.
Well, it's official. Cammy Dunaway is now the main antagonist of the concept of joy. She's a parasite that manages to cling on to even the most wonderful of things. It's like her presence is the embodiment of abandon all hope. For some context, Cammy Dunaway was the executive vice president of sales and marketing at Nintendo of America from 2007 to 2010, which essentially meant she's partially responsible for all the whitewashed, soulless atmosphere that late 2000s Nintendo provided. But something that certainly irked people in the worst way possible is how she essentially became the face of Nintendo's E3 presentations. The events exclusively watched by the most hardcore of fans were now being targeted towards people who probably couldn't even remember what the letter E was. Thus, every time I see her, I can't help but be reminded of this era of old. So what does that exactly have to do with Wii Fit Plus? Well, she stands in front of a screen and talks about it for 4.5 minutes straight.
Why am I still here?
Yeah, the whole event is kind of just like that. Instead of improving on the completely out-of-touch event that was 2008, they just kind of went all in. I guess it's a lot more focused this time, but still fairly disappointing. They did reveal Mario Galaxy 2 there, so...
Don't you touch her!
Wii Fit Plus eventually came out in Japan on October 1st, 2009, America on October 4th, Australia on October 15th, and finally Europe on October 30th. It did around the same as the original Wii Fit sales-wise, with it selling around 21 million units. We fell for it again. Now this box art is purely revolutionary. Now it's not just a white lady, but they upped the racial diversity. Thank you, Mrs. Dunaway. But I suppose we now have to get into the game itself. Luckily for me, I already have save data from the original, which means I can pretty much continue where I left off, but with the new features. First and foremost, I have to mention the added fitness modes, like the new brain training exercises and the body test. Speaking of the body test, we now have the Wii Fit Plus channel, which is exactly the same thing as the original. You can also now create profiles for your baby.
Ah, jeez. It's kind of like a baby.
It's a little bare bones considering all you can do is measure their weight, but I'm still glad it's here. But to add to the fun, you can also add your pet.
Jesus kind of like a cat.
Another new feature is a brand new mode titled My Wii Fit Plus. This pretty much solves the issue from the first game, that being that you can now create a fully fledged workout with back-to-back exercises. You can either pick from pre-chosen routines that can fit to whatever you're aiming to gain from an exercise, or you can create your own. You can even set goals using real-world equivalents to visualize them better. I think it's definitely a great choice for people who are working to get an actual workout. Now for all the non-mentally handicapped people, we can move on to the most important improvement to Wii Fit Plus, the mini-games. Every game from the original are now unlocked by default, which is a pretty annoying thing to deal with in the first game, so that's definitely a welcome improvement already. Some now also have minor tweaks, like how the original Wii Fit Island was updated to become Woohoo Island from Wii Sports Resort, which was being developed around the same time. There's a new multiplayer mode, aka taking turns, as well as new yoga and strength training exercises. But something you'd probably notice is the introduction of METs. METs, or METs, are essentially units that measure how intense a certain activity is. It involves more complicated math, and you can eventually calculate how many calories you've burned. Not sure why they couldn't just display how many calories you'd burn on the fly, but man, it makes for a good bullet point. Alright, now we gotta talk about the new training section, Training Plus. It adds 15 new mini-games, which is incredibly substantial. None of them really fit into one category, they're all just kind of jumbled there, so I'm just gonna have to marathon them. First, we have Perfect 10. You do math with your ass, it's pretty much just that. It is a good example of the more mental aspects Miyamoto wanted to include. Next, we have Island cycling. I really like this one. You basically bike around Woohoo Island similar to the cycling game in Wii Sports Resort, only instead you get to explore most of the island while passing by flags as fast as possible. The way you move around is by stepping on the balance board and tilting the Wii remote, which kinda makes it look like you're playing New Super Mario Bros. Wii while really having to use the bathroom, but it works. My only big complaint is how tiring it can be, especially in the advanced course. Next we have possibly my favorite game in the whole Wii Fit saga, Rhythm Kung Fu. It's a pseudo-sequel to Rhythm Boxing, but now you recreate several Kung Fu poses. Again, I like rhythm stuff, and I get into this one way too easily. The little Chance the Mies do are also pretty cute as well. So, have you ever wanted an incredibly in-depth look into the form of a golf swing? If so, Driving Range is for you. It uses the balance board to detect your exact golf form and helps you train at becoming better at hitting golf balls. It goes way too above and beyond for my taste though, and I find it pretty boring. Not sure who else this would appeal to other than golf enthusiasts, otherwise just skip it. Oh boy, an advertisement! I forgot to mention this in the last game, but the hula hoop games in Wii Fit were actually trademarked by Whammo, the company that manufactures the real-life hula hoop. The reason I mention that is because our next game is very obviously sponsored by Segway. Segway Circuit, all rights reserved, has you controlling a Segway on a beach trying to pop balloons while avoiding obstacles like moles and Segway signs. Fun fact, the owner of the Segway company died the year after this game came out because he drove his Segway off a cliff, so you can now really see how effective those advertisements were. Now we have Bird's Eye Bullseye. Jeez, what a mouthful. You flap your arms like a bird to land on targets before flying to your final destination. I think this one's pretty relaxing with the swaying motion of your arms and the nice music and great views of the island. Pretty solid. Snowball Fight, yeah. Obstacle Course, god damn it, stop it with the Wii Play stuff. Obstacle Course is a small marathon where you walk across moving platforms and not jumping. Yeah, something the game likes to remind you is that you shouldn't jump on the balance board, which is understandable, but do you have to make me do it all over again because of it? Also, damn, that music's pretty jammin'. Tilt City has you balance colored platforms to move them into the correct pipe. It's okay. Now this next one, it's pretty close to home for me. Another rhythm game, that being Rhythm Parade. You play in a marching band, which is something that I actually used to do myself, so I would certainly know my way around to Oh, for f***'s sake! I have no clue if this is on purpose or I'm just bad, but there's a very obvious delay between you stepping on the board and actually hearing it on the screen, coupled with the also out-of-sync whistle just leaves me utterly confused and missing constantly. It's a real shame because I really would have liked it otherwise, and I suppose when you get used to it, it can be pretty enjoyable. I just hope I'm not crazy or something. In Big Top Juggling, you juggle while balancing on a ball. Pretty stark contrast in skill here. Maybe if the whole marching band thing doesn't work out, I could become a clown. Oh goody, a skateboarding game. You gotta rotate the balance board again, but I think it's implemented very well. Specifically whenever you have to take your foot off the balance board to move faster, just like on a real skateboard. You do trick shots off of ramps and be sad, it's a laugh and a half. Now we get to the first of 3 remasters of the older games. This is Table Tilt Plus, a slightly harder version of the original and somehow even more like a cool math game. Balance Bubble Plus is just pure concentrated manslaughter, and finally Basic Run Plus. It's exactly the same as before, but now at the end you get a short quiz based on your observations of the island. I guessed all of these. Please don't lose faith in me. There's also a new secret minigame, the Scale Challenge. You gotta put objects on the balance board that match up to the weight given on screen.
I've given up now.
Man, I'm shocked how much they managed to improve here. I still wouldn't say it's the best workout, but it is a much better choice over the original, given my Wii Fit Plus is a really great mode for that. I really didn't give a shit about the brain exercises, but the addition of Training Plus was really the star of the show here. I already liked the games in the original, but the added ones are just more of that balance board goodness that I'd recommend to anyone. And considering they're both the same game, though, you really don't have to play the original. Wii Fit Plus is way more than enough. And that pretty much brings us up to speed with everything so far. A new entry in the Wii Fit series wouldn't come for the next 4 years, so we're not quite ready for that yet. All you really need to remember is that this is yet another important chapter in Nintendo's ongoing journey to shill as hard as possible to the casual demographic. But very soon, Nintendo will see the marketability of the Wii series itself and take things in an interesting direction.
In conclusion, no, exercise did not help. In fact, I actually feel worse than I did before. I feel some sort of deadly premonition of things to come. My psyche is telling me something along the lines of, oh, a motion control based music game.